Like all major cities, London is constantly changing, but just as we don't really notice the Earth turning on its axis, most of us barely give it a second thought. But Google has what I consider to be one of the greatest creations of the 21st century so far: Street View. You can view up close pretty much any place in the world and essentially walk around taking in the sights. Being able to look around makes it feel distinctly more realistic than simply looking at a picture, and it's great for planning ahead for a trip, seeing how accessible somewhere is before visiting, or checking whether or not there's anywhere to lock my bike up at that shop I need to go to. I could ramble all day about why I love Street View, but realistically we all know about it, and if anything we take it for granted nowadays. It's already been around for 17 years. But this opens up a whole other reason to love Street View. Although Google update their imagery roughly every year, they keep older imagery up. And with their time travel feature, we can now walk the streets as long ago as 2008. Okay, 2008 wasn't that long ago, but imagine people using this feature in 100 years to look back on people and cities in the early 21st century. Imagine us being able to use it to roam the streets of 1924. However, the imagery now goes back long enough to be able to spot several key differences in London in particular, and I want to share some of my favourite ones in this video. This is the brilliantly named Bleeding Heart Yard in Farringdon, one of the oldest parts of the city. The square features in several films and novels, including Charles Dickens. It was not named after a pub, but may instead be the result of centuries of natural language change. I've provided a link in the description to a very interesting article about it. It was probably first built around 1746, though it is teeming with architecture from multiple centuries. This, for instance, is a much later addition, even later than you might think. Up until 2022, number 8 Bleeding Heart Yard looked like this. The original building was built in the 1960s and felt incongruous against its far more historical context. When an opportunity to redevelop it appeared, things got creative. Demolishing buildings is nowadays not always regarded as the best solution. Because building things generates a lot of CO2, the development industry is exploring new ways to retain and enhance existing buildings instead. So when the time came for 8 Bleeding Heart Yard, developers decided to keep it. The structure was extended upwards and outwards and reclad in a perforated brass facade which is reminiscent of 19th century architecture. It reminds me of the back of an old pirate ship. The facade is cleverly designed to look like wood from further away, but up close it's evidently metal. Bleeding Heart Yard itself is a charming place tucked away within London's cityscape. It has a ton of character, with these small cranes hinting at its industrial past. I also love these wall-mounted lamps which to me look a bit Parisian. These are the types of places that make exploring this city totally worth it. The best buildings enhance their surroundings, and this definitely does that, especially compared to what was there before. In future, I wonder how many people will be aware that this is a building from the 2020s and not the 1920s. Few parts of London have changed more than East London over recent decades. When the docks closed, they left huge tracts of derelict land in their wake. Starting in the late 1980s with the area around Canary Wharf, regeneration has now spread to all corners of the East End. When Stratford hosted the Olympics in 2012, much of the area to the north of the railway station was derelict. Since the Olympics, nearly 4,000 new homes have been built, and a new neighbourhood has appeared which 6,500 people now call home. I won't dwell on Stratford too much as it's probably worth its own video. In nearby Canning Town, Silvertown Way has transformed into a corridor of skyscrapers, and the High Street has been transformed too, with this development at Rathbone Market increasing local housing. A brand new part of Canning Town that I really like is Goodluck Hope in Blackwall. The development sits on one of 2 peninsulas branching into the Thames opposite North Greenwich. 800 new homes were built here between 2016 and 2022 in 16 new buildings up to 30 stories in height. The name comes from one of the old estates which occupied this peninsula. It was first developed in the 1970s, industry was attracted to the site's easy access to the Thames, and in 1789 the Brunswick Dock was built here. By 1803 the area was a hub for trading and shipbuilding. This lighthouse was built in 1864, it's the only surviving lighthouse in London and is Grade 2 listed. In the 2010s this area had become a tired and run-down light industrial estate which was torn down in early 2016. What's replaced it is one of my favourite new London neighbourhoods. They may not look it, but these townhouses are brand new, yet they already have a ton of character, something which I think is quite difficult for new builds to pull off. Despite the development having several quite tall buildings, you barely notice them from the ground. By lining the street with these townhouses, the development presents a human scale. The tall buildings are stepped back from the street, while these shorter mid-rises perfectly bridge the gap in height, providing an interesting and layered roofscape with plenty of features to entertain your eye. Like these pitched roofs, which seem to reference the area's docking history. These balconies remind me of Butler's Wharf by London Bridge, though that might be a bit of a reach. The tallest 3 buildings make up the upper level of the development from a massing perspective. Unlike the other buildings, they don't try to mimic old industrial architecture. Instead, I interpret these buildings as looking a bit modern industrial. This cage-like crown on the tallest building reminds me of a factory or a power plant, and I like this because it contrasts well with the old industrial vibe they've gone with at ground level, and tells the story of the area's past as its industry evolved. At the very tip of the peninsula is Trinity Buoy Wharf. Ships were built and maintained here, employing 150 people in 1910. The area fell into decline alongside the rest of the East End during the post-war era. Then, slum clearance erased any trace of the strong residential community which once existed here. Regeneration started in the early 2000s, with this stack of containers providing studio and office space. At this point, the area was still predominantly industrial. The last major industry, a food processing factory, closed in 2006. This ship was moved here in 2008 and has been converted into a recording studio. And this is the SS Robin, the world's only complete surviving Victorian steamship, built here in 1890. And the best places are those which celebrate their history. This dry dock, also Grade 2 listed, has been retained and embedded as a focal point for this new square, which connects the waterfront with the heart of the site. This square is really well designed. The old dry dock provides a focal point, and the middle has been filled in with all sorts of trees and greenery which look amazing, while preventing the square becoming windswept from being open to the Thames. Something else this square gets right is architectural variety. Despite all being built pretty much at the same time, the buildings are given different styles, colours and heights to make them distinguishable. This creates a more interesting wall to the square with plenty to keep our eyes entertained. I think this blue tiled building is great. I'm loving seeing more tiled buildings popping up everywhere. It's a creative way to instantly enhance a building and make it feel a bit more special. The square perfectly frames the dome of the O2, which draws people down towards the riverfront. And yeah, it's a bit quiet at the moment, but there's these retail units here and here that kind of front onto the river here, Millennium Dome there, and that should create a nice kind of space here when everything's full, but I think because it's just finished, this will be something special in the future, I think. Once the area is fully occupied, I'm confident this will become a vibrant hub for the neighbourhood. Not all changes in London have been related to new buildings. Instead, there is more of a focus now than ever before on the spaces between buildings. This is where the majority of us in cities spend the most of our time, and so it makes sense to improve these places for everyone's benefit. This is Strand Aldwych, an impressive square fronted on one side by a very typical set of London terraces with shops on the ground floor, and on the other side by King's College's Bush House, which was built in 1935. There's also a seriously impressive gateway to Somerset House here, which is one of London's most brilliant spaces. In the middle of the square is St Mary le Strand, a Baroque church which has been here since 1724. The church was criticised for being too extravagantly decorated at the time that it was built, not helped when a decorative urn fell from the roof and killed a passerby in 1802. The church has been a symbol of Aldwych for centuries, but although the square surrounding it might look like it's been here as long as the church, this isn't the case. As recently as 2022, it was part of one of London's main east-west road corridors. But complaints about traffic here date back to the 18th century to a parishioner at the church. In 2010, David Green, who worked in an office in Bush House at the time, commented in Strandlines, a local journal, that the Strand is a soundscape that consists of traffic noise and siren sounds with little human interference in the mechanical chant of modern urban life. In 2022, the road was diverted via Aldwych and the space reclaimed for pedestrians. One campaign group described the church as having been liberated. I'd extend that by saying the whole area has been liberated. These incredible buildings are given space to breathe, space for people to appreciate them. The church is given new prominence, now gracing its surroundings rather than being choked by them, and people have somewhere else to sit and relax in the sun. Cities need as many of these as possible, and seeing as demolishing entire buildings to build green space is not easy, Closing roads and using the space left over for a park is a highly creative and impactful alternative. Reclaiming space from roads is one of the cleverest ways a city can introduce more public space for people. Roads in cities are a sort of elephant in the room. We don't really notice them until they're gone and the space is reclaimed by people. With the spare space, we introduce more trees, green space, play areas, and somewhere to sit and relax. This is useful for people living in parts of cities which don't have a lot of parks or larger green spaces nearby. In Clapham, Venn Street was once like any other London side road, a strip of grey tarmac with 2 rows of parked cars. This was somewhere you walked through. The narrow pavements gave little room for places to sit and watch the world go by. The street was closed to cars between 2008 and 2012. Several new trees were planted, and these string lights now make the space feel more intimate. I love the way the church is perfectly framed by these trees. Some parking has been retained to provide access to local homes, and deliveries are allowed in the mornings. Closing the road created more space for these restaurants to spill into the street, which increased the number of covers and therefore local tax revenue, and all the benefits that brings. Car access to local houses is retained through 2 other streets. Quite simply, Venn Street was surplus to requirement, and therefore a better and more efficient use has been found for it. In doing so, it's created an attractive part of Clapham which feels relaxed. A nice respite from busy Clapham High Street right around the corner. I didn't even know Venn Street was pedestrianised only relatively recently until I started making this video. The best public spaces are the ones which people take for granted. It's so perfect that we don't consider a time when it was anything else. Which is why I like Street View. It allows us to explore and appreciate the changes happening all around us. I've been blown away by the messages of support from my first video. Thank you to everyone who liked, commented and subscribed. It was really encouraging, and as a result this video has been created a lot sooner than I initially intended. My head is teeming with ideas for more videos. My next one I think is going to be another Why I Like video. So if you like this one, please consider subscribing so you can be up to date with the next one. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.